Hello, Scott.
Hey, buddy. And hey, all you viewers out there, welcome to the Political Matrix. Well,
Haircut.
I know we got haircuts and we're all kind of starting
Exactly.
to
We're getting
get
ready because
summer all the
the tariffs are good. We got peace in Russia,
we're
peace in
we're
Ukraine.
getting the tariffs are getting haircuts, so everything's getting cut.
Exactly. And except for this show. And so exactly. I mean, I am surprised though. The gas did go up 42 cents today. I don't really have any today is what we are on May 13th. And if anybody out there has any freaking idea why
Oh,
gas
no,
went up 42 cents,
I got it. I got it. You see, while the Democrats will tell you that it's all because of Donald Trump and his incompetence and he doesn't know what they're doing. Now they will say incompetence, but to prove incompetence, you got to say the incompetent thing that he did. But what the truth is that the gas companies are switching to their summer blend, and so they don't.
that's it.
There's always a dip in gas prices going into summer as we're getting rid of the winter blend, and once it's gone,
Right.
now we're back up to the summer blend.
Okay, so we'll be back
Welcome to summer.
down. Exactly. So we're going to summer. We got Memorial Day weekend right around the corner. And so, I mean, that's going to be, and also for all of us wonderful Floridians here, beginning of hurricane season. And so it's going to be really good. And so I
June
actually
one.
exactly. I mean, I actually misjudged where I lived at. Whenever I was moving over here to Palm Coast, I thought it was going to be like 10 miles from the coast. And I found out I'm only 2 miles from the coast.
you know,
No bit of a difference.
well,
And so, but yeah, so it's a little bit closer there. But yeah, it's been a very interesting week here in politics.
well, all of this. What's amazing to me is watching the Democrats trying to switch gears to the next thing, but that they're going to criticize Trump about as Trump's last things start actually coming true. Like China, I mean, they're basically without saying it, they were saying that China is going to destroy the United States. There's going to be an economic implosion because we're fighting with China. Well, the economy
Yeah,
didn't implode, and China is jumped right into line.
yeah, their economy did. They had a run on the banks this last week.
Yeah.
40 or 50 of their banks have filed bankruptcy in the last 2 weeks.
Well,
And all of a sudden they says, let's cut a deal, okay?
yeah.
Otherwise we're gonna have Tiananmen Square all over again.
Well, the bottom line is that their economy has been in trouble for a long time.
It's
I
in
mean,
big
it
trouble now.
just happened this week. And what happened this week is that Trump, the Trump's tariffs kind of pushed them on over the edge.
It did.
But all he did, he didn't create the situation. He just accelerated something that was that was already happening and was probably still going to happen anyway in 6 months.
Yeah, the banks that went bankrupt actually were holding $55 trillion of American dollars.
I kind of figured that's what was going to happen. What's going to be really good is they probably are also holding a significant number of American uh, treasury certificates,
They are
T-bills, and stuff
correct.
like that.
Yep.
So the only potential trouble we have is if they try to fire sale those. But if we've got the cash, we could literally borrow cash from someone else and buy back our own debt.
Exactly. I mean, basically, the tariffs went back to very good tariffs. I mean, it's 30% the American tariffs on China, and it's 10% the China tariffs on America. And then there's going to be a little bit of an override here and there. And so, I mean, I think it's a lot better than the 145, the 125 tariffs that it was. And
Uh-huh.
so the stock market agreed with that. And then we also had Zelensky. He agreed to a peace deal here with Putin. We don't have any idea how long that's going to last. It
Well,
might actually be over by
Putin's
the
the
time we
wild
air
card there.
this. Yeah, Putin is a wild card. He has a tendency here to go ahead and change his mind a lot at the last minute, being the little serial killer that he is.
Well, I mean, I've personally done business with people like that before. We had a guy that we tried to get into the office, into the conference room
Right.
for months and months and months, and he was coming and then he wasn't. He was coming and he wasn't, and then he finally showed up, and we stayed all day and hammered out a deal, and everyone was shaking hands and high fiving, and congratulating each other. Even him. I mean, he was part of the party. Everyone's having fun. He walks out the door, goes down and into the parking lot, gets in his car, and calls us back and changes the deal.
Yeah, well, we had the same issue with the former the founder of the listener group, Robert
Yes.
Smith. Robert Smith would
Yes.
do this very similar thing a lot. He'd cut a deal in the room. He'd walk out to his car. He says, "I think we're going to change the deal. I think we're going to change it up here. Let's see if we can
Well,
do something
I
different."
was thinking
And
about it. This part
he'd
really kind
ask
of
me about it.
bothers me.
He'd ask me, I'm like, "No, don't do that." And he'd ask a few of the other workers around us, and we said, "No, do not do that." But he's like, "I'm going to do it anyway."
Yeah.
Just to prove that I can do it. He wants to be like the Lee Iacocca of call centers. And so back then, the listener group was mainly doing all these call center surveys for car dealerships.
Right.
And so we had like 600 or 700 different car dealerships we were calling for all over the country. And we had a call center of like around 300 people. And so he was trying to cut deals and trying to be like the little call center of Lee Iacocca. And it is totally ridiculous. I mean, and so we have Putin being the same, similar way.
Yeah.
And I
Well,
don't know if he's going to keep his deal or not, or if it's going to stay or not. But at least we're going the right direction. For all the people who keep on saying that all the things that Trump are doing are wrong, they're all going the wrong direction. We're going the right direction, guys. Okay, peace is being looked for. The economy is settling down. In fact, the inflation rates came back after the tariffs for the first quarter, and the people were shocked that inflation did not increase what they thought it was going to increase to. In fact, it's the lowest inflationary rate since 2021. And
and it's just going to keep getting better.
yes, I mean, in fact, we did have gas here cheap enough over here in Palm Coast. It's the cheapest it is, and I've seen it since before COVID. I mean, it got all the way down to 272 a gallon. Actually, got down to 258 a gallon in a little town called Bunnell, and also in another town called let's see, what's the name of that little town? It's right outside of Gainesville. It's not in Micanopy, but it's Hawthorne. It's 258 a gallon. And it only lasted like that for a day or two, but I mean,
Well, so
it's probably gonna go back to that rate once this whole summer blend here settles in, and the prices settle in for the summer blend. But usually, summer blend is just usually around 10% higher than the winter blend is, and so
yeah, exactly. And all the refineries don't switch over at the same time, so there's a little bit of a
exactly.
lag in supply that so it keeps the price a little artificially high for a little while, and then
And
it just goes down.
it's also that way because of all the tourism that happens here in the summertime. So,
Indeed.
by supply and demand, there's going to be a much more demand over here in Florida because we have all the tourism here coming here in Florida. So, because the demand is higher, they're going to raise the prices just a little bit more to get a little bit of out of everybody.
To get more.
It's kind of like the opposite of Walmart. In Walmart, you have volume discounts. Here we got volume increases.
Right,
And
right,
so,
right.
and so that's what we do here with gas. I already see a few million people here coming this direction. Everybody's raising their rates. Just a little bit. A tenth here or there is not going to kill you.
And
No,
and and and, and,
especially when you guys
and
spend a few $1,000 here with Mickey Mouse and Donald Duck anyway.
well, and this isn't the last. This isn't the last bump in the road. There's gonna. I mean, it's a process, not an event. We didn't get in this position in one day,
Oh
one
no,
year, not even 10 years. This has
yeah.
been coming for half a century at least.
hmm I mean,
So
right now oil is $60 a barrel, or right around that range. So it's around the almost the perfect price here for oil. Hopefully, it
yes,
doesn't go too much. Hopefully, it doesn't go too much lower. I do know that the profit margin for oil is right between $62 and $75 a barrel.
right.
So if it goes below 62, then we're gonna have a little bit of reverse, problem with that. So hopefully, it just sticks around here in that price range. I think it's
Well,
going to
yeah, the oil companies know how to deal with it. Well,
exactly.
they'll manage their production levels so that they'll just meet demand.
Exactly, and everybody here will panic accordingly because they have no idea what the hell we're talking about because they don't pay attention to anything except for what the media tells me. I need to quit doing that. You guys, this whole
Most
media
of them don't
scare
care what the
tactic
truth
bullshit.
is. Most of them
Exactly,
don't care what the truth is. We're so. I mean, I hate to use a Democrat word, but we are so tribal.
yeah, we are.
Everyone is so vested in being, in tearing down. Trump bad, oh, orange man bad, oh my God. So
Yes.
so they absolutely are
King
terrified to
Kong bad.
acknowledge anything good that he does for fear that it's going to enable him to do more, what they call bad stuff. But
Yeah, I mean,
so,
exactly. I mean, I asked him, I says, so whenever things go good, do y'all get upset about that? And they're like, well, it's not really going good. It's just you think it's going to be good. I'm like, okay, so I think it's going to be good, and it actually is good for the moment. Is that a bad thing? And they're like, very quiet. It says, this is very frustrating to talk about. I'm like, what's frustrating is that the Democrat Party wants it to be negative because that's how they raise their money. They want
oh
people to
no,
be victims. They want the victimhood to live and thrive. They hate
uh
any kind of success whatsoever. They don't like trophies. They think everybody gets a trophy. They don't like the whole trophy mentality of winners and losers. And basically what happens is the people that succeed keep succeeding. And the people that lose learn how to succeed like the ones who are winning. And I mean that's the way it's supposed to work. And the Democrat Party just does not get that
yeah.
at all. I
Well,
mean,
I still go back to it really isn't anything other than artificial crisis so that they can fundraise. I mean, yeah, I got in a little Twitter battle today with some cat about that. And he's just talking about you know there's my actual Twitter battle today has been with the numerous Democrats that have told me to name one thing, just one thing that Trump has kept his promise about. And
what?
immediately I tried out. Well, he did drop the border encounters by 95%. And then they talk all the way around it like we didn't even actually one of the guys, their latest interesting strategy is they'll get Grok or Chat GPT, and they'll get some. Is Trump solely responsible for the drop in border traffic? And these AIs, they just all they do is regurgitate media talking points when you talk about stuff like that. So to hear that, it's just
Yeah,
that
well, yeah,
they're just trying. They just don't want to acknowledge it. Period.
exactly. I mean, because the reality is he is solely responsible for choosing the process of how it happened. He talked to the president of Mexico to put those troops in Mexico. He talked to Tom Homan about putting all the troops in National Guard and the border. Nobody else talked to anybody. He's the one that did it. I mean,
Oh
and
no.
basically,
All the people
how
I've been
hard could it
talking
be
to
to
today,
figure out?
all the people I've been talking to today want to give credit to Mexico. That Mexico is actually responsible for the drop in border traffic, which
They are
which is not
responsible.
untrue.
That's
It's
true.
just that Trump compelled them to do something.
Exactly. They weren't going to do it without him asking them. They were not
Exactly.
going to stick 10,000 of their troops on the freaking border. And then
No.
we had 10,000 of our troops. That's 20,000 troops.
Yeah.
That it
That's
works. It works.
absolutely. The amount of energy that they're expending trying to make sure that Trump it doesn't get credit for anything is remarkable, but it's certainly consistent with his first term.
It is. I mean, well, they haven't impeached him yet.
They filed articles. It's just
They
they haven't
filed.
voted on any.
Yeah, they haven't voted on it yet. And I mean, they have not had anything at all to grab onto that's anywhere close to reality, to where there's no kind of phone call or anything. In fact, I think he's leaving the whole Zelensky phone calls out altogether. He just
Yeah,
goes and sees the guy or
yeah.
brings them here and make sure every meeting is public. So there's no
Hmm.
private meeting for anybody to say that there's some sort of conspiracy about him violating some sort of rules of this or that or this. So they even exist
Oh yeah. Oh,
anymore,
you mean
or
like
done
you mean like the airplane
or
thing?
conjured up, or the airplane thing. Yeah.
I mean, the airplane thing is the most ridiculous thing because, these guys, I would say they just don't get Trump, but it's not that they don't get him; that they refuse to acknowledge him when it's glaringly obvious. The reason he's even talking about that Qatar airplane is to embarrass Boeing because Boeing is 10 years delinquent in producing that aircraft. And the reality is that if Qatar gave Trump that plane tomorrow, it'd be 2 years before you could use it as Air Force One because there's a
Right.
lot of upgrades that have to go into it. And frankly, it's
Exactly.
gonna have
I
to go to the
mean,
wrong facility for the upgrades.
well, right now the stock market's at 42,140,
Well, it's not
and
up that much, it's up to that.
what's up to that? Yeah, it is down today 200 points, but it's
Uh,
near its record heights. Okay,
well, it was down, it was up 1,000 or 1,100 points yesterday.
1,100
So
yesterday. Yeah.
there's always a dip
Oh
after a
yeah.
big jump like that.
There's always a correction after the correction. I mean, that's the way the market works. You know, people. If anybody ever thinks the market just stays up, they shouldn't get in the market. If anybody ever thinks it stays down, they shouldn't get in the market.
No,
The
if you're going
market
to
goes
play in
up
the
and
market,
down and up
you
and
got to play
down.
every day.
Exactly. It's anybody who thinks that. I mean, I get so many people telling me that Trump is responsible for all the down stuff, but he's not
Uh,
responsible for any of the up stuff.
oh,
All the
no,
up
no,
stuff that
of course not.
happens is everybody else doing or undoing what he's doing to make it all horrible. Now, you know,
Actually, my favorite talking point today
that's not
was
bullshit.
my favorite talking point today was when they said that he on day one he rescinded Joe Biden's executive order for prescription drugs so that he could come here today and implement the exact same order and take credit for it.
Oh my
Problem with
God.
that narrative is that Biden's was not an executive order. Biden's was a congressional bill that passed. Trump did not do an executive order that did anything that overrode the statute because he can't.
No, he did
But
not.
the thing is that what Biden's statute did was it it affected only 10 drugs that Medicare and only through Medicare. What Trump is doing is going to impact all prescription drugs, regardless of whether it's Medicaid, Medicare buying them,
Right.
or private insurance.
And hopefully we start making the drugs back here in America again, or at least in a nation that's not hostile toward America, like they're making them with China right now. I mean, I remember they did make a lot of them in Puerto Rico before hurricane. The
Yeah,
hurricane took Puerto Rico out, and then that's actually where the China came in. China picked up all the stuff that was being made in Puerto Rico.
right.
And so I have no idea what the status of Puerto Rico is right now. Are they rebuilt? Are they solvent again? Are they good?
I don't know if Trump really wanted to do something with Puerto Rico, he'd run a bunch of FBI agents down there and root out all the corruption down there. And
I think they have done most of that. I think most of it's all Republican now. It's pretty much most of the Democrats have been thrown out of Puerto Rico.
well, irrespective of party, the
Well, I'm
Democrats
assuming. I'm
don't
sorry.
have an exclusive on on corruption.
Well, you think Republicans are corrupt?
I'm saying
You name me one
there
corrupt
are
Republican.
corrupt people who happen to be Republicans, just like there are corrupt people who happen to be Democrats.
Republicans are virtuous.
Yeah, whatever.
The party of virtue. Matt Gates.
No, 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 no. I don't trust a single one of them any further than I can throw. And there's some of them that I consider close friends, but I still, you know, if we're out doing things and stuff like that, then we're friends and I trust them with my life until they go to vote. Then it's like, exactly what are you doing? Exactly what are you doing?
There's a lot of Republicans I know who are good friends of mine who I would not let them babysit my kids.
Well,
You know,
no, I don't have any problem with them. Well, there are some of them that have that problem too, but um, well,
every now and then. But
well,
Democrats are like,
yeah, but you see, you can't tag that to any specific
oh,
party.
you can't. You're right. You can't. That's about the people I know in both
Yeah,
parties. And
corruption
so
is
it's all
irrespective
anecdotal.
of party.
Exactly, it is. And in all reality, I mean, Puerto Rico, I think should be the 51st state, not Canada. And I think we need to go ahead and get Puerto Rico here cleaned up and get ready to make that happen.
I would love to get that. Frankly, even regardless of whether or not they become a state, we would be doing them a huge favor if we just made sure that everything was all their affairs were being conducted above board.
Yeah, because I mean, their largest population is just a little bit south of here in Kissimmee, Florida. That's the
Mhm.
largest Puerto Rican population in America,
Right.
and so I mean, they're already migrating over here to America in a very rapid form. And so I
Yes,
mean, and
they're
so
Americans. Why? Who cares?
exactly. I mean, it's a U.S. territory already.
Yeah.
And so I mean, it's not really like people were telling me, oh, they have to get visas and everything, and they have to. I'm like, guys, Puerto Rico's U.S. territory. And I'm like, it is really? I didn't know
Yeah.
that.
When I got my concealed carry license,
People
I
just
had to
don't
give them
know.
my. Huh?
So many people just don't know anything.
No, I know. When I got my concealed carry permit, I am the son of a naval aviator who was stationed on Guam when I was born, and when I sent him my Guam birth certificate, it took they tried to deny my application 3 times because they said you have to be a U.S. citizen. I'm like, uh, well, first off, no, you don't. And B, I am a U.S. citizen because C, Guam is a territory of the United States, and every person born on Guam is an American.
Exactly.
But, so it makes me weep for our education system. We cannot get rid of the
We
Department of
don't
Education fast
have
enough because
one.
they are nothing in the world but a hindrance to actual education.
Well, I don't really think we have an educational system at this point where it's to the same level as the rest of the industrialized world. I mean,
We have an
why
indoctrination system.
yeah, we have an indoctrination system, a social programming system.
Mhm.
But as far as
Exactly.
education and critical thinking goes, I mean, there's been so much lack of critical thinking here lately.
Well,
It's
you
just
can't you can't
saddens
teach
me.
you can't teach you know intersectional feminism and racism and teach people critical thinking at the same time because they cancel each other out.
It does. I mean, maybe you look at what people blame on this or blame on that, or even stuff that people blame Democrats in our party, blame the Democrats for. I mean, nobody's thinking about the entire picture of anything. I mean, everybody's so used to these talking points and these like knee-jerk reactionary responses altogether. And I tell all my Republican friends, read every side of every story. Do not just take the Republican propaganda bullshit or the Democrat propaganda bullshit. Read and study every single issue and get to know all the different angles of it because there's a lot of surprises in there that, you have no idea anything about until you start, thinking, thinking it
Right,
through.
for sure.
And it's frustrating as hell. I mean, right now we have a big issue here with property taxes here in Florida. The governor wants to get rid of property taxes now, and all my libertarian friends were like, "That's awesome. We got to get rid of all of them." I'm like, who's going to run the fire departments and the police departments, and who's going to do all that? "Oh, we'll figure it out." I'm like, "Well, figure it out first.
Yeah.
Come up with
No,
a
no, no, no,
solution
no.
first."
Let's just defund the police, and crime will take care of itself because the police are actually causing most of the crime.
Exactly. I mean, the whole idea is that all these people who want to create, these big actions just for political gain are doing everything ass backwards. I mean, you had to have a solution first that's going to take over the funding and sort of keep everything going without without funding being taken away. And whenever people don't think that through, it just really bothers me that these people are in elected office in different parts of the state, and they shouldn't be.
The real problem with the police is there's two sides of these stories, and you gotta understand if I guess people are a lot more understanding about veterans coming back from combat, or they can wrap their heads about veterans coming back from combat a lot easier than they can the police because veterans come back from a short deployment, like a year deployment or 2 year or even a 2 year deployment.
Period diploma,
They'll do
yeah.
a year and they'll come back and they'll go back and do another year. Maybe they do several tours. Cops go so and especially some cops, they go do that. I mean, for
Every
decades. I mean,
day.
there are cops have there are plenty of cops that retire, and but they've also having had to deal with trauma over and over and over for a long time,
Oh,
and some of them don't always. you know, react well about it. So we have there's a lot of research that we have to do. There's a lot of on that kind of PTSD type trauma. There's a lot that
Exactly.
we have to do to get to get them the opportunity, to the training to deal with that better. And we need to get there's some paid time off they just gotta have so they can get their head right.
I mean, I was actually talking to a psychiatrist today, and they were telling me a lot of people that are being misdiagnosed as PTSD might actually have MPD, like multiple personality disorders, because a lot of times whenever they're in this certain type of crisis mode, they literally have to become a whole different personality whatsoever and leave their other personality that's just home baking cookies or home taking care of the kids and playing ball. They have to leave that personality altogether and become this other personality who's, running around with a gun chasing a bad guy or going out or basically doing things that are not characteristically normal for a regular everyday person. And so a lot of times they're like putting themselves in different personalities and I mean I mean PTSD is a real thing, period. But one other thing with mental health is that people don't realize that whenever they snap to this or different person or personality a lot of times, I mean,
Well, it's
people
a
need to
defense
understand
mechanism.
the stress level that they're going under,
Yeah.
and how you need to handle it whenever they come back out of it. And people are not delicate with it. They're just like
No.
they treat them like shit.
Exactly.
They treat them like crap, and they have to realize what they're going through is hard. And it's there's no easy way out of it.
Well, I mean, you're definitely right about about them changing. Events in your life will change you. They just do. To
Hmm.
see it is to be changed by it. And and for me, you know, up until a few years ago, like I'd roll up on car accidents and stuff like that, and I would be out there. I'd be Johnny on the spot. I could go out there. I'd call 911, get stuff rolling, and then one of my cousins, who I was very close to, died in a car accident, and now I try and do that, and I get on the 911 calls. And I get all emotional, and
Right.
instead of like getting into the cold as ice, deal with it right now, and then deal with it, manage the emotions later. It's they're just bubbling up, and it's all still me dealing with that. So
Exactly.
I know that the cops who deal with that every single day, when their best friend got murdered because he walked up to a car
Hmm.
on a random traffic stop, that guy had a tail light out, and he's just going to tell him, hey, your tail light's out. Walks up the door, gets shot. Well,
Yeah.
now everyone in that department is like, when's that going to happen to me?
Yeah, I mean, I was talking to some veterans over here in Palm Coast because we have a high veteran population over here, and they're like, every time they start walking, they hear a snap or they hear a
Yeah,
backfire, they hear a gunshot. I mean, they're just like jumping out of their skin. And I mean, it's a real thing, and the society keeps on saying that it's this fault or that fault, and then they get the people who are going through that they start blaming the system and everything else as well. But
well,
the
yeah, then
reality here is
you get
that
the
it's a
activists that
situation.
you get the activists
Exactly.
there that want to crucify that guy for money, basically.
Exactly, and they want to misuse him, and they want to exploit his deeds and everything else, and try to make as much money they can off this guy. Not realizing they're just more or less making him relive the torment for their profit and their shits and grins. That's disgusting.
Yeah, and the thing is that we don't need to defund the police. We need to fund the mental health care of the
Yeah,
police,
exactly. And when
and
you
and
defund,
training. And we need training, and we need counseling for the police,
and same thing for the
because they see
military
horrible
guys.
things on a daily basis.
Exactly. And same way it goes for military personnel and everything else. I mean, they keep on talking about the DoD cuts and the DoD funding, about how much the DoD gets and also the law enforcement get as well. But whenever you look at how much their salaries are bringing home, they're
Yeah,
not bringing home anywhere near enough salary here for
no,
defending our country and defending our freedoms the way they are.
absolutely.
They're out there, or defending us and creating lives for us. I was in the Air Force. I know I lost quite a few friends in the Air Force,
Mhm.
and so I mean, it was a few hundred pounds ago when I started in my tour there. But I mean, it was an awesome
There
opportunity I
are
had.
hey dude, there are a lot of tragedies in the Air Force
Oh
too. I
yeah.
mean, sometimes you run out of coffee or the air conditioner breaks. I mean, what are you going to do?
or a plane or a ninja falls out of the sky. Exactly. And so, Air Force is a lot more than to make coffee and, God, I always get this every time. It's like with the banjo jokes. When I start playing the banjo, you get banjo jokes and you get Air Force jokes. Then you get fat jokes on top of that. So, it's just like a whole combination of that.
And
Yeah.
I'm only kidding with my Air Force
And
friends.
so, yeah, the Air
I absolutely
Force
respect the
is by far
commitment
the
and
best
the job that they
branch.
do.
Is yeah, best branch, the most equal branch of all the 4 or 5 branches here. We got was
That's a
between the
matter of
Coast
opinion.
Guard and the Marines and the Navy and the Army and everything. My dad was in the Army. My uncle was in the Army, the Navy, and Marines. And he was in the Navy Guard, the Marine Guard, and the Army.
Yeah.
So we're a very fully committed family. In fact, my dad was in the CIA and everything. So all these spooks out there, yeah, he was in the places that we can't even talk about.
He could
Oh
tell you,
yeah.
but he'd have to kill you.
Yeah, well, he's 80 years old now. He's like, I killed you, buddy.
So you like your odds?
Yeah, my odds are pretty good now. So, but no, I mean, it's been one interesting week here, and I think we also had a little side project that we're working on. We have another nonprofit that we're working on for sports. You want to talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, I mean, our immediate project is the Gator Redemption project for what's it,
Uh,
Gator
uh,
84
yeah,
Redemption?
Gator Redemption 84. Yeah,
It's 84. That's it. Which really just is more to talk about the circumstances surrounding the documentary. Where we're actually filming a documentary in support of this nonprofit, and it's to discuss the circumstances surrounding the 1984 Gator football team and how you know minor infractions and frankly some minor penalties transformed one day into them all one day, and then the next day, like 2 weeks later, all of a sudden they're having championships taken away from them. and
exactly.
and putting it in context, this is during the same time when Southern Methodist University had a parking lot, a student parking lot full of Corvettes and Ferraris and sports cars and stuff like that, and they were getting warning after warning after warning, versus Florida getting infractions for
Well,
uh,
SMU did get a death penalty.
drive drive student athletes to the grocery store to buy like soap and things like that.
Yeah, no, no. SMU did get a death penalty. They did
Well,
lose the
yeah, but
team for like 5 years.
that wasn't until '87.
That's true. They lost him for
So
like 5 years.
yeah, well, they lost it for 1 year, but it took them forever to rebuild it.
Oh, okay. That's
That's why
longer
they
time.
call it the death penalty. Losing your team for even for 1 year. Well, all the students athletes go, and how the hell are you going to recruit people to come
Okay.
back? So
Exactly.
so
It's very hard to.
yeah, I mean
And
it's aptly named for sure.
then you throw it all that into context with today's scenario, NIL money, where an average linebacker, an average lineman was making around 100 grand a year now
Yeah.
in 2025. And you have quarterbacks making like $4 or $5 million a year, actually making more now than they could in the pros. In fact, they've actually decided not to go pro because they make more in college.
Yeah, like Senator Sanders, he had to take a pay cut.
They did, and we're not even sure still if he's going to play yet.
No.
The quarterback from Georgia, he's going to take a huge pay cut if he went to the pros. So he went to Miami now,
Uh-huh.
and Carson Beck, and he was one of the guys who famously bought 2 Lamborghinis when he got his NIL. And so, I have no idea why he would waste his money like that. But he's a college kid, and that's what college kids do. And so now he's taking his little butt down to Miami and left Georgia. And so, that being said, Miami had who did they have last year? He's the number one pick this year. Ah, dadgummit. Anyway, but
I don't know. Yeah. Once they transition over the pros, I could give a crap about them because I'm still kind of burned out on pros. You know,
pros are coming back to America now.
well, I don't even. I would like them to be more supportive of the country, but the reality is, I don't want them to be political. I don't want them to be political on my side. I don't want them to be conservative Republicans. I want them to be football players, and you keep your politics in
That's
your
true.
pocket.
Exactly. Now there is a lot of red, white, and blue American flags everywhere, which I don't think anybody has any problem with American flags, but
Well, the thing is, see, the bizarre, incomprehensible thing about all of that is how, how does you know, uh, their market is very pro-American. I
you
mean,
know,
they
Kaepernick.
tend to be more conservative. I mean, it's not that there aren't any Democrats that enjoy sports, but overwhelmingly they're Republican, and they're basically spitting in the face of of their core market. And
Exactly.
I'm just like, I thought you guys like to make money.
Exactly. I mean, if you look at the NFL market, you look at the WWE market, it's right around 85% identical.
Mhm. Completely, and they
That's
are jingoistic, right, through the roof, red-blooded American. But
exactly.
you have to gear your product to whether or not you want to entice them, at least don't offend them. And well, and it worked with me because I was a passionate Saints fan for a long time, and now
Oh yeah?
I couldn't name a single player on that team.
I couldn't either. I mean, and the whole thing here is, I mean, the documentary that we're doing is talking about the wholesome part of football, and it's talking about, how just the small infractions back in the '80s turned into huge, huge mushrooms of terror to a team totally,
Well,
and
I mean, yeah,
it never
yeah.
should have happened.
Well, the thing is there's really no justification for
No,
the level of sanctions that they had versus the infractions that they had listed, because they were all
exactly.
basically things like, oh, someone took someone to the store, or
Or somebody got their air conditioner turned on in the dormitories, or they
yeah,
got
like
their
yeah, like
AC
that,
fixed.
that actually is one of my favorite ones. The air conditioner in the dormitory is out.
In Florida,
It's not a safe environment during the summer. It's not a safe environment for anyone to stay there. And so, I mean, you would think that the school would have put them up somewhere where it was safe to stay, and instead they didn't do anything.
yeah, they did nothing. No,
They got mad because they spent money to protect the health of these student athletes.
yeah, they put them in a hotel,
They put them in a
very
hotel
cheap,
until the air
very
conditioner
cheap
got
hotel
fixed.
until the AC was fixed. And I said, "How are you going to build this?" I think somebody said you want to build it to winning.
Yeah,
I think it's the yeah, Charlie
Charlie
Pell,
Pell
yeah, the
said
coach.
that's it. Charlie Pell said bill it to winning.
Exactly. I mean, and that's the whole idea. I mean, you're supposed to protect your players in all the health ways possible. And that should not be a violation of any
Well,
kind of thing at all.
he framed it as winning because in his mind that's what it was. But the reality is they have an obligation to protect
They
the
do.
health of those students.
Exactly. And that's what we're working on a documentary for and everything is to let people know about the real story behind the story of how come the trophy's not there at the moment. Now everybody did get their rings, but the trophy's gone, and so
Well,
they want to be able to get the
that's the
trophy
thing.
back.
That's the thing. The rings, the trophy. Actually, the trophy didn't get taken away. I mean, no one can find it right now, but they didn't give it
It's
back to the SEC either.
it's missing in action.
Yeah, it's MIA. Someone's got that trophy in a closet somewhere. But but the reality is that they can't. You know, it may be. They had their rings, they had their trophy, they had the title written up on the stadium wall, and then the SEC came back after voting. Their executive committee voted 5-1 to not strip the title. 2 weeks later, they come back and they have another vote, and now it's 4-2 in favor of stripping the
Exactly.
title.
I mean,
It wasn't scheduled. It wasn't even proper under the bylaws.
exactly. Whenever you look at the record books, it just says 84 blank. I mean, it doesn't even say anything. And so, I mean, we want that. The team needs that back, their legacy
Absolutely.
back, and everything else. I mean, they put their hearts and lives out there on the field, and they allow for draft issues and everything else. Because I mean, they weren't on TV for 2 years, and people have no idea Well, that just your draft chances whenever you're not televised and you're not seen. I mean, especially
Right.
back in the day, there was no cable back then.
Right.
It wasn't
Exactly.
like people had, just ample time just to watch everybody all the time. If you're not on TV, you weren't being drafted. And that's just the way it was back then. I mean,
Yeah. And
the people were not traveling like they were now. Everything, especially if they were not on TV for violation reasons.
yeah,
People were just overlooking them.
there was no Sports Center. There was no Chris Berman. There was no nothing. It was just
Yeah.
you know ABC, NBC, CBS.
There was not even a Fox yet. Fox wasn't even around yet.
No,
No,
I don't even know if CNN was around. I mean, it was if
no.
it was brand new.
CNN didn't come around until '86, I
Yeah.
think. So yeah, we're talking
So
about early kind. I mean, Generation X guys. I was 10, and so I don't have any gray hair yet.
right.
Starting to have gray hair, but not a lot then. And so, but yeah, but and so that's one of the other projects that we will work on here this last several months, and we had some pretty good interviews here this last week. And so,
Hmm.
but I mean, the whole idea here is that what we're doing here at the Political Magic City is we're actually working with a couple of different other nonprofits as well, and what we're trying to do is that bring a lot more information, not just in sports or in politics, but in every different community out there that people are hiding so much. And there's so much out there that people are not even talking about. People just want you to believe they're one side, and that's where we come in. We're trying to expose all the sides of everything. It's just kind of like what we talk about when you want to research something, and when you actually, basically adjust your thoughts sort of about what's going on in reality today. You can't just listen to one side anymore. You got to really do some research, read everything through.
Yeah. Well, it's always that same old. The hell is that? Oh,
Yes,
something just flashed. Some weird thing just flashed up on my
another
screen.
talking point.
Yeah. Exactly.
Yeah, because I was sick and tired of watching so many podcasters in the last 3 or 4 weeks, and which podcasting I'm glad is getting big now, but everybody's just doing talking points. That's it. It's podcasting talking points, and there's hardly any thought whatsoever or any and what they're putting out there.
Well, you think about how most memes or talking points or whatever go viral, and it's because you have this vast audience of people who are hungry to read, or actually they want to be creators and they want to have something to talk about, so they just latch on to whatever they can, and most people don't have the access to get to the underlying facts on things.
Right.
So they hear something that sounds nice and juicy and they just go with it because it supports a
Exactly.
narrative that's close to their heart.
Yeah, and once you and I could easily just be reading headlines like everybody else is reading, or just reading the biggest thing that happens and giving our opinions on that. But it gets kind of boring after a while because everybody else is already doing that, and at the same time, we have no idea if that's even the real story or not. Because most of the times when you start doing that, you realize a day or two later, after you start reading more about the story, that was just one side of one part of the story instead of the entire thing.
Well, I mean, we know most of these people. We know a lot of these people actually,
Yeah,
and we've known them long enough and well enough, and have followed them closely enough that most of the time, I can read most stories in about 2 minutes because once I hit a couple of highlights in them, I already
exactly.
know because I know what happened last week. I know what happened the week before that. I've followed this path forward through the whole thing. I just got to see what the new information is, and I'll skim through the whole thing. But at the end of the day, and if it's loaded with a bunch, I start running into details that I've never heard before. Then I will carefully and diligently read every single word. But other than that, but even when you do that, you got to figure out, you got to filter out this is fluff, 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 BS, BS, BS to get down to the core.
Yeah, I mean, and when I look at the politics today and all the news about everything going on, everything is so just anti this or now the Fox side is Trump walks on water and he's just gave birth to Jesus or something. I mean, it's like, it's a whole different scenario. I mean, and they've got to cut that out too for credibility reasons.
Yeah.
I mean, he is a freaking human. Okay,
Well,
he
the
does
thing
have
that
human tendencies.
well, the thing is it's exactly like what we've said, you know, and I get a lot of content from Fox, but I know how to read Fox. I know how to
Exactly.
read CNN too, but they're just so mean spirited. I mean, it's hard for me to.
They're trying. MSNBC, you
Oh,
just can't read.
no, that's so dumb. I mean, oh God, Maddow. Oh my God,
Rachel
that,
Maddow is horrible.
they make such a big deal out of her PhD that she's like Dr. Rachel Maddow. You know,
Oh my
shit,
god. If I hear
that
about
doesn't
another
make you
Harvard
smart.
lawyer or another doctor, I'm gonna puke.
Yeah, yeah. A PhD doesn't make you smart; it makes you diligent, or
Yeah,
it proves that you're diligent. It doesn't prove you're smart at all. It just proves that you were able to, for an extra couple of years in college, you know, follow the steps that they lay in front of you, and that's it.
yeah. I
And
mean,
I don't know what is her PhD in actually? Journalism?
who knows? I mean, I could always Google it or chat GPT it if I actually
Oh,
cared enough to.
I'm fixing
But
to do
I
that
don't
right
care
now.
enough to. But I mean, the whole idea that you and I have both been told, like, this guy's a Harvard lawyer. He can really help you with election law really, really well. And this Harvard lawyer kept screwing up on setting PACs up, and we had to keep helping him advise him on
Oh my
how to
God!
properly do that. And it was, we're not going to mention his name, but
No, no,
it was just so
I,
elementary and sad.
he's one of my favorite stories because you know I didn't actually know he was a Harvard lawyer until I went to his office. I just knew that he was, you know, that we were offering to help and got zero feedback, and you know, and he wouldn't contact us, and it was our client. It was a client that we were kind of working with, and he just ignored us. And then I went to his office to try to catch him and actually have a conversation with him. And I saw that big Harvard diploma on his wall. I'm like, oh,
That's why.
I'm wasting my time because a Harvard
Yes.
lawyer will not listen to a thing you've got to say. If you think he's listening to you, you're imagining things because he
Yeah,
is thinking about in his head. All he's thinking about is all the things that you're saying that are wrong and how he's going to bill you for it.
exactly. I mean, we're trying to tell them there is a difference between a PAC and a 501c4 and the way they handle and the way they maneuver. And then there's a difference between a PAC and a 527. And he kept on thinking that he could do everything anonymously and dark money because everybody wants to do dark money or whatever the crap they call it nowadays. And a regular CCE, Committee of Continuous Existence, as a standard pack. And that all has to be disclosed, guys. Every single thing there is purely, and then the reports came out, and all these people that gave money, they're like, why is the report out and my name on it?
Yeah, he
I'm
wouldn't
like,
listen. He was doing things illegally, and see that was the frustrating thing about him. On one hand, he was over complying with the law in ways that were not requirements. On the other hand, he was flaunting the law in ways that are serious violations. All because he was a Harvard lawyer and he didn't have to listen to these little underlings.
yeah, we're the underlings,
Yeah, we're
by
we're
the
the
way.
underlings.
Yeah, we were
I mean, can you even count the number of times we've had that we've had to correct supervisors of elections? I was at
I
an event
still
one
do.
time. I was at an event one time not very long ago, and a local supervisor of elections asked me. Someone asked her a question from the audience, and she turned around and asked me to answer it for her.
Exactly.
It was about her job.
We actually have a supervisor of elections in Alachua County who's inviting candidates who are on the ballot to be part of the canvassing crew, canvassing board to watch how to count ballots that were theirs. And we kept saying she can't do that. And she says, well, nobody knows if they sign an NDA.
Yeah, yeah, because that's what the hiccup is that someone might find out. No,
Exactly.
that is not the violation of the
It's only
law.
wrong if you get caught.
Yeah, the violation of the law isn't do you get caught. The violation of the law is did you do it. You may or may not get caught, but you definitely violated the law.
And that's just the way, I mean, so many of these election offices are running so footloose and fancy free because there's nobody in Tallahassee, at least in Florida. We're talking about Florida elections for the other 49 states. And I'm sure it's probably the same way in your state too, though. I'm pretty sure, damn sure it is. Because one thing we're thinking
It's bad all
it's
over.
like that everywhere, baby. It's in every damn county. It doesn't matter where you're at. They're
Every
all running
state, every
footloose and
county.
fancy free because they're not funded right. They're not funded properly by the governors and everything else to
I
go
think it's a
and,
funding issue. I
well,
don't think it's
they
a funding issue with the SOEs. It's not a funding issue. It's a supervision issue.
well, it's a funding on to where they don't have the manpower to actually to go after anybody or enforce it. So there's not
Oh, for
enforcement
enforcement, for
ability.
enforcement,
Yeah,
yes.
exactly. So they don't have a branch that can enforce it. They have to rely on the attorney generals of that state or the ethics commissions of that state, which are also looking at other issues of the regular government bodies and the regular county commissioners and city councilmen and other city officials of that state, not
Mhm.
just election violations or which are one-offs and very unique in their mannerism, and should not be handled by a different department anyway. It should be handled by an enforcement department inside the elections division, not inside the ethics division or the attorney general's division, which does not have extreme or direct experience in election law, which is a very specific law and everything, and
Well,
people
I
don't
mean,
realize that.
no, they don't. And frankly, the story we just told about the Harvard lawyer, that really is kind of why, is because what we deal with, as election consultants is a very arcane, thing that they don't deal with. People don't
Exactly.
realize that lawyers that they hire, you know, have a very small chapter, section of law that the successful ones, all deal with a certain type of law, that's, maybe 2% of all the laws out there. They hone in on one thing and that's all they do. All
Exactly.
the other stuff that happens, they can research it and they're competent about knowing how to construct it. But as far as being experts in it, uh-uh.
It's like criminal defense guys just do criminal defense. You know, I
Exactly.
mean, murder lawyers just do murders, DUI lawyers just do DUIs. Election lawyers just should do election law. Now, whenever I had my issue with my election violation, we hired a really good attorney who's really good at murders. He's really good at
Alleged violation.
DUIs,
Alleged
but
violation.
alleged violation. But he had no idea about anything with election law. I said, well, first of all, I didn't do anything. Let's just start out there. Secondly, uh, there's the whole First Amendment thing does have a play here if anything was done. And thirdly, the evidence that they provided was all false. I mean,
Well,
they actually created fake invoices.
I
You
remember
know, I mean,
that.
they actually the state attorney actually threatened friends of mine who were vendors in the market and told them very similarly like what they did to Trump. Either you play ball or we're going to go ahead and shut your business down. One vendor,
It wasn't as brazen as that.
no,
What they
actually, let me finish the story. I haven't told you the story yet. It's a one story. This one vendor, they actually had him create fake invoices against me. The other vendor said he had no idea who I was. And so,
Okay, so what actually happened was they told the guy that if you they says we need the invoice, we need the receipts from where he did this. Well, I don't have them. Well, you better find them. Well, I didn't make I don't have them. Well, you need to come up with some. And that's how they do the presentation. It seems like they're just telling you that, to do what you're doing. What they do is they make it so you got no choice but to just make
exactly.
something up. Because if you don't, they tell you that either you're going to give these to me, or we're going to charge you. And I don't care if they don't exist right now, which is a backdoor way of saying make something up.
Exactly. And that's the way, that's how lawfare works.
That's
And,
exactly how lawfare works.
and I was a victim of that. This was back in, what year was that? 2014, 2015? Yeah, it was during the Doug Underhill election, and he got
Yeah,
elected. That's
yeah.
whenever he undid all the DOT money. We had just actually, you and I had just worked with County Commissioner Gene Valentino to secure $400 million for a four laning of 17 miles of road into Alabama. And
that
now at the same time,
desperately needed
desperately
because
needed.
for I mean, most people that go to that area now regularly have like 45-minute delays because of traffic,
Exactly.
especially in the summer.
And now that if you talk about $25, that's probably around like almost $2 billion worth of funding for DOT. I mean, it was 495 million back in 2015.
Anyway, yeah, that's old water under the bridge.
Oh
I don't
yeah,
know if anyone
that's
really cares about that.
well, yeah, I'm
But,
sure.
but but it is a great
Uh,
example of how the system really works. I
yeah,
mean, people aren't when people say that that there's corruption and these things happen. This is really how they happen.
exactly.
So I mean, so we've been first person witnesses to this stuff. So what the stuff that Trump is that's happening to Trump is no different than that.
Yeah,
It's just on a much larger scale.
yeah, and hopefully, I mean, we got three more, got 2.5, 3 more years of this, and hopefully the Democrats will just will get demolished in the next session of the election cycle here, the off cycle election. We won't have to worry about any of this anymore,
Yeah, I
and
think the
we
midterms
just
are going to be ugly.
yeah, they're gonna be very ugly. I think it's gonna be. I think the Republicans are gonna do a lot better than people think they are, though. I think it's
Mhm.
gonna be very, very good for the Republican Party.
Exactly. Because
Uh,
they can see the thing is it doesn't matter what the Democrats scream and cry about. At the end of the day, people can look around them and see reality. So when
yeah,
they say Trump, it's like my conversations today. Yeah, it's not like they can
so
say,
even
well, Trump didn't do anything. Well, the border went from 6,000 people today. Yeah, I actually accepted the other guy's number. I thought, I started out saying it was dozens, and he says, no, it's 330 people a day. I'm like, okay, well, let's go with your number then. It's going from 6,000 to 330 a day. That's 94.5% reduction. And you can't give anyone credit but Trump. Oh no, it was Mexico. Mexico is responsible for that.
it's ridiculous.
Yeah. So I mean, it's just all this circular conversation because they're desperate to not admit that Trump did something good.
Yeah, well,
I probably that was actually one of the most inflammatory posts that I've had. I mean uh, and I don't even know why it got so much traction, but I've had like hundreds of people commenting on that thing today. I'm like, really? Okay, well, whatever, dude.
I mean, that's good. I mean, because we have to get the truth out there. I mean, the truth is, this place is getting safer, crime is dropping, and the economy is getting better. I mean, eggs are down 10%, gas is down 15%. I mean, everything is gonna start turning around pretty well.
You mean all
And
those benchmarks that people were roasting Trump about, or well, frankly, we're roasting, but we're trying to avoid. The Republicans were roasting Biden about them. The Independents were roasting Biden about them. The only people sticking up for him were the Democrats, and I don't even know what they thought they were fighting for.
yeah, I mean, everything's dropping in price like we said it would, and it is. His first quarter numbers are out, and the eggs did drop 10%, and gas is dropping, and other products are dropping as well. So I mean, it's gonna turn around, guys. I hate to put a bubble in your parade or rain on your parade, I guess, for the Democrat Party, but you guys ain't got nothing left.
I'm just glad to watch them commit to the public record all these ridiculous statements so we can throw them back in their face here in a couple of months.
All they can do though is they can just join America.
That'd be
They,
nice.
yeah, it would just be nice to just join the party, guys. It's a lot of fun. It's fun being happy. It really is. It's awesome being
Yes, it
happy.
is. Yes.
This whole angry bullshit thing you guys got going on, it's got to
Anyway.
go. But you guys have we're gonna go ahead and call it here quits here for the show here today, and you're gonna go ahead and tell people how they can find us.
Oh, well, it's Political Matrix News on all your major social media platforms. Like, subscribe. Make sure you follow us, and you got to if you've already done it, do it again because you know it's funny to watch these dips for people that I know for a fact are watching us because I interact with them, and they said, "Well,
Yeah.
I don't even know how I got unsubscribed." Well, I do.
It's
So
magic.
when we don't habitually just follow all the little word police things, which I frankly is makes me sick, honestly, that we even have to govern our speech in the ways that we're having to. So the price of freedom, the price of free speech is you got to keep clicking. We'll keep on doing it, baby.
Exactly. And you guys have a wonderful evening.
All right, we'll see you.